Pennsylvania in Philadelphia. It brings together thousands of high school athletes from all across the United States and elsewhere, and this is a tradition that began in 1895. That's up next on Carib Nation.
When America wants to know what's happening in the Caribbean diaspora, there is one clear choice.
Hello, welcome to Carib Nation.
Both people inside and outside are
very excited about today's program.
Looking at you, I can tell that you have traveled the journey.
One television organization brings America close to the people, stories, and events that affects Caribbean life. Get close, get answers, get Carib Nation.
A good thing to come together here to try and get some relay practicing and just to run against the best persons and best teams in the world. And I think it gives us an opportunity to do that here.
Love the crowd more than anything. That's the best part of being at PENN Relays to me. It's definitely a crowd participation, and the crowd goes in. They're either for USA or they're for Jamaica, and they're definitely screaming and shouting.
I love competing in Jamaica. I was born there.
It's a healthy rivalry and I enjoy it. Jamaicans back home, they really enjoy it. Like, they'll kill you in the supermarket with arguments. You have to go and win. They beat the USA, and I was like, okay, I'm going to do it.
Welcome to Carib Nation. Today we'll be discussing the PENN Relays, the annual relay carnival that's held at the University of Pennsylvania in Philadelphia. This is a tradition, a sporting tradition that began in 1895. It is the longest running, continuously running sports event in the United States. It is also the largest event that brings together high school athletes. And the connection here and the importance is that the Jamaican and Caribbean athletes have had an indelible mark on this event. And to help us discuss this and dissect all of this, we have in our studios today Tony Carr, who is a former track and field representative for Jamaica, and he was also a high school track and field coach for Excelsior High School in Kingston, Jamaica. Welcome, Tony.
How you doing?
Doing all right.
All right.
Yeah, so PENN Relays, and we talked about the importance that PENN Relays actually has to track and field, first of all in Jamaica, and then to the wider Caribbean. Actually, a lot of people don't know that this event started as an event exclusively for high school athletes in the United States.
Well, I don't know if it's the relays have started exclusively for high school, but with regards to Jamaica, one Herb McKinley, I'm sure you know who Herb McKinley is.
Yes, I've heard of him.
Right. He was approached because they had the PENN Relays people had, you could not compete in their relays over X amount of miles. Jamaica was just outside that mileage. It was mainly northeastern schools. Because of who he was, world-class athlete, world-class Olympian gold medalist, and loved, and I didn't know that Herb was so loved until I started going to PENN Relays myself. And he got the then director of the meet, forget his name, but he got him to extend this courtesy to Jamaica. Jamaica started first in 1964, Kingston College. and they came and they won the 4-1. In '65, they came back and they won again. And by this time, Excelsior became the second school to take part in the relays. But we only had one athlete, and that athlete was good enough to win the mile for high school boys championships.
You were the coach of that athlete.
That's right, Neville Myton, who had won at Champs. As a matter of fact, he never lost a race in Jamaica.
And let them know what Champs are.
Champs is a high school.
That still continues.
Champs is a high school championships for boys and girls in Jamaica. The best high school
premier event.
Yes, the best high school track and field championships in the world, period. It's now being broadcast live worldwide.
When Jamaica, that's Kingston College,
Kingston
won
College.
in 1964.
64, 65, 66.
Give us a sense of what the atmosphere must have been like, how electric it must have been.
We felt like this was like winning a gold medal of the Olympics.
Right.
We never expected that. But it also told us that we were on the right path for track and field in Jamaica. But with the success of Excelsior and KC, then Excelsior, other schools started taking part. During my period as a coach going to PENN Relays, I used to look at the schools, the boys' highs, and the other top schools from the New York area. And when you looked at how we changed relay baton, we were miles ahead. So the training in Jamaica was really, really good.
Right, which leads us to another issue that we have to look at, the training, yes. Now, how has that training translated into the effect and the impact that we see Jamaican and ultimately Caribbean schools and their athletes having on the PENN Relays as a phenomenon?
Well, everybody loves a winner, right? And the Northeast Corridor, especially the New York area, I heard numbers like 7 million Jamaicans alone in that area. I'm not sure. But I know we have quite a lot in the Maryland area here. So with the success of these schools, and if you have ever been to Champs in Jamaica, we're talking about 25,000, 30,000 people on a Friday, especially on Saturday. And people migrate from the various schools, and they migrate into New York. You started seeing more and more Jamaican flags. It used to be one little section when we started going there, 64, 65, 66. But today, right around that stadium that holds 60, 70,000 people, it's nothing but yellow and Jamaican flags all around. Now, why wouldn't you expand the thing? And when I say, why wouldn't you, I'm speaking of the PENN Relay people. Of course, they expanded it. Now, to break the Jamaican legacy of winning all these relays, because now we started to expand. At this time in the 60s, the girls were not invited yet. That came a little later with very technical, with the main school. And the whole atmosphere of what was happening at Penn's, other schools from the other part of the Caribbean started to trickle in. First, there was schools from the Puerto Rico and I think it was United States, Virgin Islands, because they're U.S. territory. And later on, a few schools from Bahamas and as far now as Trinidad and Tobago. Schools are coming from all over. Not only that, we got a lot of scholarship, track and field scholarships, just sending our athletes to PENN Relays every year.
So do you see PENN Relays, therefore, as somewhat of a recruiting ground for U.S. athletic coaches?
For athletic coaches or athletes?
that the coaches go to Penn Relays to sort
Sure.
of scout for?
Sure, because you have such schools like Texas, Louisiana State, Michigan. You have big schools. Some are Arkansas, that does well in track every year. So yes, they started to recruit. And those who could not get into the big universities, athletes, got into what they call here the community college, 2-year schools. Then they could transfer after they graduate to to the bigger institution. So yes, it was happy hunting.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit now about some of the signature events that people go to Penn Relays specifically because they know that the Jamaican in particular, they want to see the performance. Let's talk about some of those, the 100 meter and what age category.
In the early days, it was mainly the relays. And if you had a high school athlete that was good in long jump, like I had a few, Casey had a few, other schools, you would enter them. But there were not a lot of, for example, when I left Jamaica, I was encouraging them to start, our athletes are good enough to run the 400 meter relays. There was not, now they're winning. They have won a couple of times. And CAST joined us.
That's what used to be the College of Arts, Science and Technology.
Right. It's now University of
Technology.
Right. But back those days, it was CAST. They joined us, and they did well. Dennis Johnson, the great Jamaican sprinter, former world record holder, was a coach up there. And they did well. And a couple other schools from Puerto Rico, especially, and colleges from the United States Virgin Islands also started to come in. By this time, they started letting in women, girls, high school girls.
And how did that change the picture? How did Jamaicans come and change the picture there?
Well, if you recall that Veer around that time had a young lady called Marilyn Ottey.
Yeah, I've heard of
Marilyn Ottey, perhaps one of the greatest female athletes ever to run, went to Veer.
Yeah. Now running for, is it Slovenia?
I don't care, she's Jamaican. She's living there now. She's about 50. So
52 actually.
She went to Veer, and Veer dominated the sprints. This made other schools that were not traditional track and field powers, for example, Immaculate Conception, St. Andrews, Queens. You would see one or two girls from Queens or one or two girls from St. Andrews taking part in champs when I was there. Now it's full-fledged. Not only that, I think since I left, the J3As, which is a controlling body for Jamaica track and field, they make sure that training is first class. If I was to go back to Jamaica now at my age to coach, I would have to be certified. Around here, and I coach in high school here, I coach at Archbishop Carroll High School. You don't have to be, you just be a PE teacher or something. But in Jamaica, you have you go to, do you get your coaching certificate, the different grades? So the coaches are well prepared. You have the San Jose, Jose Marti school out, college out in
St. Catherine.
St. Catherine,
Spanish Town.
Right, that it now turning out people who can actually do massage. Back in my days as an athlete, I had a hamstring problem, and I still have that problem. We only had, like, that I remember, 2 masseurs, and they were not very good. Today, we can afford to send 5, 6 of those people out to the Olympics.
So this is part then of the secret to the success that we've been seeing in
The Olympics.
athletics and the Olympics and Penn Relays and even locally in the local championships.
Of course, because it's better training. The athletes are getting better training, nutrition. I think Excelsior was one of the first schools that started feeding their athletes. I mean, not everyone, because let's face it, not everyone could afford to buy food every day. As a matter of fact, they're still having the same problem because some of my old athletes that I coach is now back at Excelsior, led by Desmond Shakespeare. Have a group called Dash, and he tells me the sorrow of some of these athletes. But we started that. So you got nutrition. I had a team doctor, who was the old boy of the school. Casey had a bunch of old boys. And the old boys were the driving force in the athletic program. Calabar spent something like 80,000 US dollars, I think, if my figures is right, US dollars, 80,000 this past year, 2012, preparing their team for
Yes, in fact, this is a very interesting topic that we're going to be picking up and getting into some more aspects of it, this very nutrition aspect, in the next segment, because it's pretty interesting, and we have to talk about, what's being done on the ground here to ensure that the nutritional aspect of the program, when the athletes come up from Jamaica, from Trinidad and Tobago, etc., that they're properly fed and well prepared from that perspective. And so, as we come up to the break, that's to let you know that's what we're going to be talking about. So that please stay tuned. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
When America wants to know what's happening in the Caribbean diaspora, there is one clear choice.
Hello, welcome to Carib Nation.
Both people inside and outside are
Very excited about today's program. Looking at you, I can tell that you have traveled the journey.
One television organization brings America close to the people, stories, and events that affects Caribbean life. Get close, get answers, get Carib Nation.
Welcome back to Carib Nation. We've been talking about the Penn Relays up at the University of Pennsylvania every year for over 100 years now. And we've been talking about the connection with the Jamaican athletes and how they've, in essence, dominated certain events at the Penn Relays and actually changed the game in many respects. And we've been talking with Tony Carr, who himself is a former athlete. He's also a coach, track and field coach, used to represent Jamaica and also represented track and field for Excelsior
high school
in Jamaica.
Yeah.
So Tony, we were talking last time about the whole nutrition program, and we wanted to look at this from on the ground here at Penn Relays. In fact, in the 90s, a group of Jamaicans in the diaspora became very concerned about this very aspect. You started to talk about the nutrition and how the athletes were being fed and so forth, and they started this Team Jamaica BICL. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, in the 90s, as you mentioned, a group of people, not sure of the exact names, from New York City area.
Well, Erwin Clare is one of them, and he actually is now the CEO of the enterprise under which all of this falls.
And they started this thing called BICL, B-I-C-K-L-E, I think.
And for the edification of those who don't know what BICL is.
BICL is food, basically, more like a bickle. Give me some, but basically it's about food. And they started, I thought, was a wonderful program. At this time, more and more schools were coming up from Jamaica. Both girls, boys dominating. Edwin Allen, school from Northeast Clarendon, Homewood High School from
Manchester.
From, my father was one of the founders of that school. A lot of people don't know that. And that's where I'm from. I'm from Shudley. So when I like to read about these schools, I like to keep in touch with those schools, but Excelsior is still my heart. I spent years there, and they have not been doing well over the last, since the 70s. The girls won a couple of things. But they started this program, Bickle, and I think they got themselves, I don't know if they've gotten themselves in trouble because now they have to support so many schools. At that time, they were not, they didn't have as much schools, but they're doing a heck of a job where they can get, I don't know how many meals they provide now, because it's more and more. The last time I went to PENN Relays, I just went to get an idea of what they do, and they do a heck of a job. And they're lucky because they're from New York, and I know it's a struggle to get sponsorship.
Well, they do get some sponsorship, I know, from the Jamaican and Caribbean-based businesses,
which is
mainly out of New York, but also some corporate sponsorship from Jamaica.
Which is good.
Yeah. Interestingly, this program has been so successful, and people recognize the need that even the other Caribbean territories that send athletes are now beneficiaries of this program,
That's right.
even though it's still called Team Jamaica Bickle.
Yeah. And it should remain
so
that
so
way.
that's an interesting aspect. Actually, moving on from there is another aspect. I think the University of Pennsylvania itself and the organizers of PENN Relays have acknowledged formally the impact that Jamaica has had on PENN Relays, its history and its development. And I believe last edition in April, the end of April this year, the Jamaican Prime Minister was there, in fact, and there was some official recognition on the part of the PENN organizers. What can you tell us about this?
Back in the 60s when Kingston College, etc., started going, there was perhaps 27,000 people in the stands. Today, you have 58,000. Who you think is benefiting?
Exactly. So
so they've done the right thing. They have honored Jamaicans over the years. I remember them honoring Herb McKinley. Today, they have over the last decade or so, they have added a nice spice to it. USA versus the world. But in the beginning, it was really USA versus Jamaica. They have added other countries now, and it has also brought much more to the PENN Relays, which is held at Franklin Field, by the way.
Right.
That's what that's exactly what the stadium is called, Franklin Field, and it's so well organized. It's unbelievable. I mean, they do this thing without blinking an eye.
yeah, and in fact, the economic aspect that we talk about,
Making a lot of money.
It makes just the Jamaican and other Caribbean participation has generated so much money. In fact, as you know, on the Saturday, which is usually the culmination
Big day.
the big day, the last Saturday in April every year, you will see people driving from as far as Florida, Toronto, and that Pennsylvania Turnpike coming down from New York full. People heading to Franklin Field. And that's money.
It is without a doubt, one, and I don't know their financial, but it has to be one of the biggest 3-4 days, biggest money-making machine in high school or college, because it's college, high school.
I think a couple of years in recent times, Usain Bolt has shown up there, and when people learn that he's going to be there, the stands are full.
I remember Blake
Johan Blake
ran for St. Jago High School, who they won. I mean, a lot of teams over the years have won. Remember Wolmer's Camperdown ran relay times I thought was going to be broken. Then along came St. Jago, along came Calabar. I mean, these schools every year try to outdo the other.
How can we even further translate all of this Penn Relay's success and all of that towards the larger society in Jamaica and the Caribbean, towards development? Is there something we can extract? Are there some lessons we can extract from just the Penn Relay's experience to put it onto our development blueprint?
Well, when I was a coach at Excelsior, I used to maintain one thing. I don't think my athletes liked me during the track and field season because discipline was a thing that I maintained. Two things you had to do. You had to go to school, go to class. Don't mean every other day. You had to go there. You had to be there.
Every day.
You had to be on the track by a certain time. I'll give you an example. I had my team so wound up, and they wanted to practice on a holiday weekend, and they agreed to be at school at 7 o'clock. I got there at 7:15. I heard about it. That's discipline. Let's face it, Jamaica is not the most disciplined society today. We have a lot of problems. Those athletes who take part representing their schools, coming to Penn Relays, they did not get there because they talked their way on. They got there because of discipline.
Indeed, and in fact, that's an apt point on which to wrap up our discussion today about Penn Relays. We've been talking with Tony Carr. He's a track and field coach. He had represented Jamaica back in the 60s. He was a track and field coach for Excelsior High School in Jamaica. And we looked at so many aspects of the Penn Relays phenomenon here in the United States and how Jamaican athletes in particular have made their mark on this event and some of the lessons we can draw from it. And discipline is one thing. And so thank you for being with us. I'm Ian Evans.